Good evening, everyone. This is the October 22nd meeting of the Revere City Council. Would everyone please rise to salute the flag?
Roll call of the members. Councillor Guanasso?
Here.
Here. Councillor Keefe?
Here.
Here. Councillor McKenna is absent. Councillor Morabito?
Here.
Here. Councillor Novoselsky is absent. He's here. Oh, is here. Councillor Patch?
Here.
Here. Councillor Powers? Here. Here. Councillor Rizzo? Here. Councillor Rotundo is absent. Councillor Zambudo?
Here.
Here. And Council President Janino? Here. Quorum is present.
So we're going to just hold the citations just for a few minutes to wait, see if Councilor Rotundo will join us. If he's not here by 6:15, we'll present them, but we'll give him a few minutes to get here. And I also want to just make a point that Councilor McKenna was unable to join us tonight due to a prior commitment, but she did send her regards. Thank you.
Calendar item number 3, joint utility company meeting with Comcast, National Grid, and Verizon to discuss double poles and trench work.
Do any councilors have any questions? We'll start it this way and work our way down. Councilor Guanasso.
Thank you, Madam President. Welcome, Stan. It's a pleasure to see you back. And I'm glad to see that Comcast is here also to joining you. Stan, I noticed in reviewing the sheet that you forwarded via email that quite a few of the poles are existing in double poles are back in Ward 3. And do we have any set plan to remove any of those?
Well, I will tell you this, Councillor, that I will tell you this, Councillor, that the numbers that I've given you in conversation with Comcast, Comcast had 15 poles. They've moved off of 13 of those 15 that were in that notice. You'll also take note that in the numbers that I sent you, Verizon did not have any, and we didn't until Comcast just moved them this week. So really the bulk of the work has to be done by Grid. And I know that in speaking to Dan about 3 weeks ago, that he's made, or Grid will make and has made Revere a priority.
Well, I'm glad to hear, because I'm noticing now that RCN's in town, and there's wiring throughout the community. Now with the new tenant in place, I think it's incumbent upon this body, Madam President, that we also invite RCN to the table, too, to make sure that they're aware of our rules of order and how we conduct our business in joint community with the utilities. Stan, you lost a lot of weight, by the way. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
You
Yes.
look great.
Yeah.
Now, the only thing...
You guys are wearing me down.
I was going to say, in the absence, were you jogging the beach or something? Yeah, whatever it is, I'm noticing that quite a bit in Ward 3, and you're coming up with a plan to remove those and help hopefully address most of these issues, and we can send our concerns to the other tenants on the poles. So this way here, we'll be able to rid our city of all these double poles.
Yeah, I think we've made progress, but clearly there needs to be more done. No doubt
Thank
about
you.
it.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Stan. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk will add RCN to the list of facilities. Anyone else? Patrick Keefe.
Thank you, Madam President. Stan, thank you for coming tonight. Just a couple quick ones. You've actually been pretty good in Ward 4, but I did have, there's a few more poles that are in front of the stadium on Park Ave. And I know that there was some conversations, there was some switches that needed to be made with taking some service off, but it looks like most of the service has been taken off. We still want to get all those poles cleared off on the
On the field side.
the field side of the
Yeah.
stadium.
I knew that there had to be a transformer or something that had to be
Correct.
addressed, so
Yeah.
I'll take this back to Verizon Engineering.
And then just one other comment, there was, up on Reservoir Ave, there was a down pole on that old paper lot. I believe I was down with Angela on it, and there was a potential replacement that needed to be done. I'm not sure if you quite remember that.
Yeah, what
That was
happens
being
now,
dealt with the police department as well, correct?
yeah, what happens now is that we used to set the poles, now Grid sets the poles. We
Okay.
only take it when it's down, so that's something that Dan would have to take up.
Okay, I'll get in touch with Dan, thank you.
Okay.
Any other counselors on this side? Counselor Novoselsky?
Thank you, Madam President. Stan, welcome. Our favorite Comcast lady. Angela, right, thank you. I just want to congratulate you, believe it or not. I'm not beating you up. Pole 48,
Go on.
Revere Beach Parkway. It only took 8 years. Thank you very much.
I've used it as a mantelpiece now.
Yeah, I believe it. But thank you very much. It was nice to see that go. And there aren't many items in my ward that are on the list. There's a few, but they're not in your group. But I do have a couple questions, Stan. On the list of the step member, I know Comcast,
Yep.
and I know Revere Fire. Which one is yours now?
We didn't have any, when
So
this
you didn't put your name in the code?
No, if we had polls that we were on or had to transfer, our name would have come up.
Okay.
So we had 0 when this report was done.
Who are these other people?
Yeah, the LTFM, that's Light Tower. Light Tower, they do fiber optic networking. There's only one, as you can see.
Yeah.
Then the NP3P MA, that's a non-participating third party, and it's been our experience that that's typically either municipal fiber that is done by the school department or a former intranet that the city owns. So, the city engineer or wiring inspector might be able to lift from those locations whose cable it is.
And the SLMA?
That's a street light.
Oh, okay. Because I know we do have other communications, I think, that we put up for the police department about 4 years ago, that they ran cable along North Shore Road. Is that fiber? Yeah, so I know that was done. So I don't know if that is part of the third-party cable.
That could be.
Could be.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Patch?
Thank you, Madam President. Stan, welcome. And
Michael Rowe.
Comcast. Yes, it says several times, I believe, actually, I kind of remember, 7 times you were going to check that, because I was that third party.
Right.
Waiting for that to do it, but we emailed that company, and my boss, I emailed them, and they...
We both know that's off.
That was off, yes.
Right.
And I believe, I don't know if Comcast said she was going to...
I had looked into it a couple times, and I was told twice that it was still in the system and needed to be checked on again, so I haven't gotten an update within the last 2 weeks. So I've been looking for one.
All right, it's been like
I'll get it to
over a year,
I think what it is, Counselor, is that it has been taken off. It may be in dispute.
Yeah, it was coded
Right.
very different, something.
Yeah,
I've never seen before.
I went by there. Don't go to the house anymore. So whether it, I don't think it's on the pole. I think
Okay.
we're waiting on Comcast on that one.
Well,
But
we'll coordinate.
I keep
nice you
checking in.
remember Michael Road. That was good. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Powers?
Thank you, Madam President. Stan, do you communicate on a daily basis with your colleague with National Grid?
No, just on an as-needed basis.
Yeah, because I've got several issues here, and they're all really National Grid. People have been waiting, called in to have a street light replaced, and it's taken them 2 months to do it. I mean, that's absurd. I spoke to National Grid to have a light put at the top of Sagamore Street, to have a emergency light. Are you, sir? Oh, okay. Never mind, I thought you were motioning to me, okay. And, you know, these things are all, you know, not being taken care of. And, you know, I would hope that when the parent company decides to get their men back to work and take some of the people that are doing those jobs now that should be doing the electrical part of it, that, you know, we'll see some action. But it's really, it's taking forever to get anything done as far as National Grid is concerned. And you know, it's just, I'm not blaming Dan, it's just something that, you know, National Grid should really look into and get their people back to work so that the people that are doing the electrical work can be out there doing it. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam President.
What I'll do, Councilor Power, is I'll send Dan an email tomorrow to just ask him to contact you.
Yeah, either that, or I could give you there's a light at the top of Sagamore Street that he was that he was going to install. He asked for the council to approve it. We approved it a couple of months ago. It's still not done. And there's an emergency light, which is very important in the Neponset Street play area, because kids have a tendency to congregate there at night. And that light needs to be put on too. So if you, I could give you the poll number if you're going to.
No, I'll just call him and ask
Have
him
him call
to
me, please.
call you
Thank you.
directly, so that I'm not misinterpreting anything that you need to make sure he knows.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Madam President. Just that 110 Oak Island Street, that's the only thing. And if we're getting prices on that, and hopefully we are, you know, maybe there's something that can be done. I understand it's a very complicated situation. Everything that can be on a pole is, so, but I'm glad to hear that you're looking into it, Stan. I appreciate it.
I did go down, Councilor took a look at it, and our engineer has been down a number of times, and I believe that there's a council order downstairs, and as soon as that's transmitted to Verizon, I'll make sure the appropriate parties are you know, investigating this, so.
I appreciate it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Madam, point of information, as a matter of fact, at 110 Oak Island Street, there was a motion put in back when Mayor Ambrosino was mayor. And then they said basically it was going to cost X amount of dollars. They didn't say they couldn't do it. There was a money factor attached to it. And both Councilor Rizzo and myself would, you know, like to see that done in a reasonably short time. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other counselors? Counselor Zambito.
Thank you, Madam President. I don't really have much for these people, but thank you for your cooperation. I did have something for Dan. The one night I have something and he doesn't show up, can you imagine? But no big deal. But again, you know, I go back a long way here, and I'm just grateful that we got this thing rolling many years ago, and we're finally to a point where we actually get things done, and the cooperation has just been tremendous. And let's keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Councilor, if you do have anything for me, let me know in advance so I can miss that meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you. Counselor Rotundo's on his way, so we're just going to keep moving, and then when he arrives, we'll pause wherever we are and just start the citations at that point. So, Madam Clerk, we'll go to calendar item number 4.
Communication from the Chief of Police requesting approval of a sick bank for Ed Flood.
Chief Guido.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Officer Flood was involved in a motor vehicle accident on his motorcycle several months ago, and he's going to be out, I would say, at least a year, so the union's requesting set up a sick bank for him.
Perfect.
So the procedure's to come before the council, so I would ask the council to approve it, and I'm sure the guys are all going to donate time, and then we'll reassess it in the future.
Thank you, Chief. Do any counselors have any questions?
And one last thing, Madam Chair, I know the council was asking about the cameras for the stadium in St. Mary's. We'll be putting those up. I got us Homeland Security money, and we'll be putting the cameras up. I don't want to say right away, but I would say in a month
Great.
for both St. Mary's and the stadium, okay?
Great. Thank you for the
All
update,
right,
Chief.
thank you.
So at this time, I'll ask for a roll call on the emergency preamble. Madam Clerk? Madam Clerk, would you read the emergency ordinance on the record, and then we'll do roll call on the preamble?
An emergency ordinance establishing a sick leave bank for an employee of the City of Revere Police Department. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Revere as follows. Whereas the deferred operation of this ordinance would tend to defeat its purpose, which is to immediately establish a sick leave bank for a certain employee of the City of Revere Police Department. Therefore, it is hereby declared to be an emergency ordinance necessary for the immediate preservation of the public convenience. Section 1, notwithstanding the provisions of any ordinance, rule, or regulation to the contrary, the Collector-Treasurer of the City of Revere is hereby authorized and directed to establish and administer a sick leave bank effective upon its passage for the benefit of Officer Edward Flood, an employee of the City of Revere Police Department. Any employee of the City of Revere Police Department or any employee of the City of Revere may voluntarily contribute one or more of his or her sick hours to said bank for use by Officer Edward Flood. Section 2, sick leave hours donated by employees to the sick leave bank described herein shall not be calculated as sick hours used by contributing employees to qualify for participation in the sick leave buyback incentive program enumerated in Title II, Chapter 2.06, Section 2.06.160 of the revised ordinances of the City of Revere.
Roll call on the emergency preamble.
Councilor Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Keefe?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna is absent. Councilor Morbido?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Patch?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rizzo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotundo? This is on the emergency preamble for the sick leave bank. Yes. Councilor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Janino?
Yes.
Yes, the emergency preamble for the sick leave bank has been approved.
Ordered on a second reading without objection. Ordered on a third and final reading. Roll call for engrossment and ordainment.
On the sick leave bank for Officer Edward Flood, Councilor Guanasso.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Keefe?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna is absent. Councilor Morbido?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Patch?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rizzo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotundo? Yes. Councilor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Janino? Yes, the ordinance has been engrossed and ordained.
On suspension of rules, do we have to suspend to go back to the first? All in favor, all opposed? So ordered. Calendar item number 2.
That the City Council will award certificates of commendation to the owners of Saffy Market, Kelly's Roast Beef, and the Good Diner for donating food to victims of the Franklin Avenue fire.
So this was Councilor Rotundo's motion. I'm going to invite him up to say a few words and hand out the certificates, and then we'll go back to the agenda. Oh. Great shot.
Hey, guys. John, thank you so much. Thanks, guys. Come on over here. Come on, make room for the other guys. No, get up here. Thank you, my friend. Good job.
You know, and I apologize for being late. I personally was at the hospital, so thank you guys for waiting, and I truly want to apologize. You know, there was a fire on Franklin Ave, and, you know, what people don't realize is when you lose everything and you have nothing, the little things help. And when there's no one around, you're waiting for the Red Cross, you're waiting for someone to do something. You feel overwhelmed when the people of your community just stand up and come forward. These people of our community, even Ira, stood up and came forward and was there to help everybody to kind of deal with losing everything. We had little kids that were running around putting up cots and they didn't realize kind of the predicament that they were in. Maybe a day later they did. And obviously the adults did. But to have some food donated to them by people like Ahmed, Sabir, Danny, Mr. Carolyn, and just do it without even guessing, without even second thoughts. I went to them and I said, can you donate? Can you give these people some food? And they did. They didn't flinch. And I remember being at Ahmad's up at Safety Market. He's over there throwing things in the bag, you know, candies, foods, everything that you can think of. And I went to go to, Kelly's roast beef, and I called Danny, and Danny Sargent said, no problem, I just got to talk to my boss, and sure enough, everybody said it was okay. And, you expect, some sandwiches. He comes out with literally tons of food. I'm talking maybe 100 pounds of chicken fingers, and then Sabir's over there with literally, I think it was like 20 pizzas. I mean, it's not so much the quantity of anything, it's the idea that this is the heart of our community. These are the people that truly reflect who we are as a community. And to give them the simple recognition means, so much to many other people, but I wish there was more I could give you. But that said, Ira, if you have any words?
Sure, thank you. Well, I thank you guys, and all your staff and everybody that helped. It was a very, very bad evening. As George said, I was there for about 10 hours. I went up to the high school, and all the food kept coming in, and I was shocked. And these are the folks that always come through for us. This is one time that they did, but it's not the first time for them. They've done it in the past, and this is just to reinforce our feeling towards them and our thank you to them. Like George said, we'd like to give you more, but you give a lot more back to us. And we really, really appreciate it. And all those 100 people in that building appreciate it, because it was not an easy night, seeing kids running around in just their pajamas with socks on. That bothered me. And I still saw them wearing the same clothes the next day. Thank God the kids go to Garfield, and the school had some clothes for them. They gave them the uniforms to wear at the school. Those are other people that helped. And this is just one group, and hopefully in the next few meetings, we'll bring up some more people, some individuals. And I know there was one other business on Shirley Ave that gave it to Delicioso, helped with the food. So we'll recognize them hopefully in the beginning of November. But we have what we have today. We recognize these guys, and we thank them 1,000%. And on behalf of all the people involved, thank you.
You're welcome. So what I'd like to do is just read off one commendation and then subsequently provide them to the person accordingly. This is a certificate of commendation in grateful appreciation of your extremely generous food donation for approximately 100 displaced residents due to a 5-alarm apartment building fire on Franklin Avenue, which occurred on September 16, 2018, and in recognition of your continuous generosity to this community. Special recognition is hereby accorded to Ahmad Kaga from Safety Market. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, this certificate of commendation, in short, is for our grateful appreciation and his extreme generosity, his continued generosity for approximately 100 displaced people for the fire of September 16th, in which 100 people were displaced up on Franklin Avenue. And again, this is for your continuous generosity to this community, and special recognition is hereby awarded to you, Sabir Abugala. I hope I said it right.
Thank you. Thank you.
And this is for Danny Sargent, in grateful appreciation of your extreme generosity and donations of food for approximately 100 displaced residents due to a 5-alarm apartment building fire on Franklin Avenue, which occurred on September 16, 2018, and in recognition of your continuous generosity to this community. Special recognition is hereby accorded to you, Dan Sargent, with Kelly Roast Beef. Again, this is a certificate of commendation and grateful appreciation of your extreme generosity, food donation for approximately 100 displaced residents due to a 5-alarm apartment building fire on Franklin Avenue, which occurred on September 16, 2018. In recognition of your continuous generosity to this community, special recognition is hereby accorded to Franklin Carolyn of Kelly's Roast Beef. Thank you. I want to thank you all once again. I want to thank the community for giving them the, I don't want to say kudos, but the adulation that they so deserve. And I want to thank you all once again.
All right, calendar item number 5.
Communication from the Election Commissioner requesting the City Council's approval of the 2018 state election warrant.
All in favor?
Place on file, please.
All opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 6, communication from the mayor relative to the reappointment of Michael Fixman as a constable for the City of Revere.
So go to appointments.
Calendar item number 7, communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Camdell Construction as a licensed drain layer.
Appointments.
Calendar item number 8, communication from the mayor relative to the reappointment of Rapid Flow as a licensed drain layer.
Appointments.
Calendar item number 9, communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of David Etoff to the Conservation Commission.
This will also go to appointments, and that meeting will be held on the 29th at 5:45 for everyone's edification.
Calendar item number 10, motions. Motion presented by Councilors Powers and Rizzo that the mayor requests Verizon to relocate a telephone pole from the driveway at 110 Oak Island Street to a more suitable location. This motion has been previously submitted.
Start with Councilor Powers, then Councilor Rizzo.
Thank you, Madam President. This motion was submitted about 6 years ago under Mayor Ambrosino, I believe, and nothing was done except we did receive word back that there was a $6,000 or $7,000 price tag attached to it, and the resident down there at that time, I don't believe, could afford that. And Councilor Rizzo and myself spoke with Stan Yusevich this evening, and he's looking into this a little further, and hopefully we can satisfy the request of the resident down there so he can regain the use of his driveway. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilor Rizzo.
Just to follow up on what Councilor Powers said, we're working with Stan Yusevich right now. I believe that they are trying to work up a price And, but it is a major inconvenience for the family that lives down there, so hopefully we'll be able to resolve it soon. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Any other counselors? On the motion, all in favor? All opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 11, motion presented by Councilor Rizzo that Section 17.16.280 of the City of Revere zoning ordinances be stricken. It is not in conformity with the State Building Code or the International Residential Code.
So this will be going to a public hearing on the 26th of next month for everyone's edification, and if the counselor has any comments?
No, I really just wanted it to go to a public hearing, but this basically has to do with retaining walls, and the state code, or the International Residential Code, calls for not even a permit if the retaining wall is 4 feet or less. For some reason, Revere, at some point in time, changed it to 3 feet or less. Anything over 3 feet, you need a set of engineered design plans, which is absolutely crazy. You know, there might have been a reason for it back when they changed the code, but, you know, no disrespect to the engineer, but, you know, this really, where it is governed by the International Residential Code, it seems to me it should be the building inspector that should oversee this anyway. So I'm hopeful that when this goes to public hearing on the 26th, that we can get it changed back in conformity with what the rest of the state has allowed for.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other counselors?
26th or 29th?
Of November, so it'll be of November 26th. The fourth Monday of every month are public hearings.
November 26th, okay, thank you.
All right, that'll go to a public hearing.
Calendar item number 12, motion presented by Councilors McKenna and Rizzo, that the mayor request the Director of Economic Development and Planning to appear before the City Council to discuss workmanship and planning of infrastructure repairs and alterations, specifically the pedestrian bump out on Revere Beach Parkway and Winthrop Avenue in the vicinity of the former Shaw site due to pedestrian and vehicular safety concerns.
Counselor Rizzo.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And Councilor McKenna had expressed her support, obviously, as she's a co-sponsor of the motion. We've had informal discussions with Bob O'Brien and, you know, expressed our displeasure, as have many of the city councilors here tonight, with that flare-out on Route 16 as you approach Winthrop Avenue. It is a very dangerous situation, and we actually went down and spent some time down there, Councilor McKenna and I. We must have spent 30 or 40 minutes down there. Literally, seemingly every other car stopped and said, "This is crazy, how is this here? It's dangerous, you know, trucks can't turn, buses are having problems. It needs to be changed." And I don't know why there is a reluctance on their part to do it. I mean, it seems very clear to even people not versed in those types of decisions. So, you know, I'm hoping that Bob O'Brien can appear before the City Council to discuss the plans down there. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Madam President,
Chief.
may I speak? I spoke at great length to Councilor McKenna about this, and also Bob O'Brien, but I think we should wait till all the striping's done on the parkway. They finished paving. It already looks 1,000% better. They're gonna do all the striping, and I have Bob O'Brien's word that if, once the striping's done, it's still a problem, we'll go back and change it. But based on the new hot top and the paving and the striping, I think it's actually gonna work out okay. I had reservations at first, but I think it'll be a huge improvement once all the line striping's put in. But the contractor knows it might have to get changed if it don't work out.
Thank you for the
So,
update, Chief.
thank you. And the idea of it was to slow the people down that are going into Beachmont, so it wasn't a raceway.
Thank you, Chief.
And also for the crosswalk and the wheelchairs to be able to go at that location where the crosswalk is. So there is a purpose. Someone didn't say, let's just put an island there.
Gotcha.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Rotundo.
Yeah, I have a different set of reservations, having traveled that every day. I've almost seen 4 or 5 people get killed there. That's a problem. So my question is, and perhaps the chief can answer it, do you know if in the event that this does not work out, when the changes will take place? What's the time turnaround for this? Because, you know, it's great that they're going to line up the, you know, the handicap walkway, which is literally 300 meters from it, at the North Shore Road intersection. My concern is the bump out and literally people getting confused as they're turning right and left, people getting congested. I see one person almost drive into the building. So, you know, when's this going to take place? What type of a time frame are we talking about?
So, Counselor, I think that's more of a question for the developer than the chief. I don't know if he would know
Well,
the
I mean,
developer's
the chief is
timeframe.
obviously speaking about it, so perhaps he knows.
Council, I think we should wait till the striping's done. They put the sign on the
That's not what I'm
island.
asking.
And we'll have to see how it goes, and then we'll address
Do you
if it
have
needs
any-
to be changed.
Right, do you have any idea when the turnaround time would be in the event that that doesn't work out? That's my question to you.
Hopefully, if it has to be changed, we could do it before winter. The snow flies, but I don't have knowledge of that.
Okay, thank you.
But
So-
let's see how it works out.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Counselor. I think we should put this into the Economic Development Committee, so that way we can have the director appear before us, and we can also allow Counselor McKenna to speak on it, because I know she wants to. So I'm going to send this to the Economic Development Committee, where hopefully, again, Counselor McKenna can speak, as well as the Economic Development and Planning Director.
Calendar item number 13, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo, that the City of Revere operate a Homeland Rapid Response Team. The team would be tasked to assist local, state, and federal agencies, as well as standalone capacity in the event of natural disaster, terrorism, fire, or any other form of disaster. The goal would be to act as a cross between Red Cross and rescue team. In that, the team would comprise of local volunteers who would respond to fire and help people with moderate housing at the high school or other shelter, setting up cots, providing food, and working with the American Red Cross once they are on scene. An additional aspect would be to have volunteer work at the medical tent during the Sandcastle Festival, nurses, paramedic, respiratory therapist, and linguists to help with people who get injured or need help. Currently, there is limited advanced life support assets at an event that is now ranking as a national event. Lastly, I would be happy to organize and assemble such a group and have them directly report to the fire chief, director of the Board of Health, and mayor.
Counselor Rotundo.
Yeah, it's actually because of the fire. Just seeing how long it took for the American Red Cross to really get up and start running. In fact, I mean, I think we were waiting an hour to get buses, maybe it was longer, Ira, to get buses to bring the people from Franklin down to the shelter. And then thereafter, I know some people actually had picked people up and drove them down there, but that was one of the complaints that was being made. And actually, speaking to the person from the Red Cross down there, when we were trying to get the food down at and I asked him, is this something that happens all the time? And he said, pretty much. And so my thought is, we have everybody here in this city that could do that. And I can't think of any group of people that would not want to support and/or volunteer for such a project. The other part of the equation is, during the Sandcastle Festival recently, I was down by the medical tents, and there's a limited amount of advanced life support. In fact, there's probably less than 4 paramedics that are down there at any one time for approximately, 500,000 people. That's a very, big problem in the event if something terrible happens, and it's not that bad if nothing happens. But at the end of the day, Tom Ambrosino had a program in which I worked with Nick Catanazzo on regarding mass inoculation for various diseases back in 2009. Matter of fact, Chief Guido, then Captain Guido, was actually at the event in the Holiday Inn in Brookline. So I think it's something that we could do. It's a pretty much cheap thing to do. All it is just organizing people and putting them in a database and then having the appropriate members of government contact them when it's needed. Just a thought.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other counselors? Counselor Morbido.
actually commend Rotundo, Councilor Rotundo on this motion. When he was speaking about Red Cross, it took me back in my mind to the Taft Street fire and how the people are waiting on a hot day from the early mornings. They were waiting 8 hours they had no water until the mayor's office brought it to them. Red Cross was not available for 8 hours. So I think having an emergency response team like this would be tremendous and be an asset to our community. So I'm all for it.
Thank you. Any other counselors? On Counselor Rotundo's motion, all in favor? All opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 14, motion presented by Councilors Rizzo and McKenna, that the mayor request the Director of Community Development to create a Welcome to Revere sign to be placed on the Chelsea side of Broadway on the Casasa overpass on Route 16. The existing sign is worn and barely visible and is not a good reflection on the city.
Counselor Rizzo.
Thank you, Madam President. Very basic request, has to do with aesthetics. And if you're coming up Broadway from Chelsea, if you're at the Casasa overpass, I believe the Chamber of Commerce, I want to say 25 years ago, put a sign up there. It looked beautiful when they first put it up, but now you can't see it anymore. It's been worn and faded and can hardly see it. And what made me think of it was as I was driving into Chelsea one day, they've got a nice brand new sign there. So, I just think, those first impressions of people driving into Revere make a big difference, and I don't think it's a big budget buster. In fact, I wouldn't be opposed to maybe the administration checking with one of the organizations, whether it's the Chamber of Commerce or the local Rotary Club or something like that, to see if they would like to sponsor it. So, other than that, hopefully we can get that taken care of. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Powers, then Counselor Zambudo.
Thank you, Madam President. I had put in a motion a couple of years back regarding that overpass and regarding the signage that was up there originally. And the original signage was put there by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and that bridge was dedicated in honor of Mayor Andrew Casasa, who was the first Italian mayor of this city of Revere. And I think that if any sign goes up there, that sign recognizing Mayor Casasa should be put up there also. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Zambudo.
Thank you, Madam President. I certainly support changing the sign, although I was involved in that original sign as I believe I was Rotary president at the time, or vice president, something to that effect. I think the Rotary would probably want to participate in refurbishing or being part of the new sign. I'm sure that the Kiwanis Club, if it still exists, will want to be. I didn't mean that sarcastically. I just meant I haven't seen any activity from them. But they were also on it. The Chamber of Commerce was part of it, and the City of Revere was part of it. So I think we'll all participate, and it would be nice to have it restored because it was beautiful when it was new some 25 years ago. And I would like to see that happen if that's amenable. But I'm grateful that because I've been looking at that, and I keep saying how bad it looks, and it really needs help. And it is the entrance to the city, even though it's coming from Chelsea, but it's the entrance to Revere. So I support whatever we do, but I'd like to contact the other groups and make sure they want to participate. If they don't, we'll do it ourselves. As far as the dedication of the Casasa overpass, I think that, although I may get in trouble for saying that, that might be a state.
Well, it certainly is. As a matter of fact, the original sign that was up there said, "Welcome to the gateway to the North Shore." And it had a plaque on there that was dedicated to Andrew Casasa when he was the
That's a
elected
different
mayor of
sign.
the
Okay.
city. And
We'll have two
maybe we
signs.
should pass the whole thing on to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
There'll be two signs.
Our
There'll be
state
two signs.
delegation, let them put the sign up there. Thank you.
It's two signs then, because the sign we're talking about had the organizations on it.
I don't care if it's three signs, Council. You
I
can't
agree.
say enough good things about Mayor Casasa.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I know
Sure we're all in
we're-
agreement
we're-
here.
Yes, we'll take care of it. All right, Counselor Keefe.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Madam President. Such a controversial topic tonight. I would certainly agree that that would be nice to update the sign. I drive that road often coming into the city, and I think whenever we have any entry into the city, it would be a good opportunity to look at the entrances and exits of our city, welcoming residents and visitors to our beautiful town. So
Thank
I'd be
you,
in
Counselor
support. Thank
Keefe. Mr. Mara.
Thank you, Madam President. We might have saved a couple of minutes of discussion. I think this proves that great minds think alike. Some think sooner than others. This project has already taken place in the mayor's office. Linda DeMayo has been in charge of this for a couple of months. She's got samples of the sign that's close to ready for fabrication. And this would be something separate from the Casassa overpass sign. I think this is just a welcome to Revere sign.
May I ask, is this a project that you've been working on that's specific to this bridge, or is this happening in different locations in the city? Just this bridge, gotcha. Thank you. All right. Anyone else on the motion? All in favor? All opposed? So ordered. While we're still under suspension of rules from when we jumped up to the citations, Counselor, so I believe we could try to take up calendar items 15 and 17 around the same time, and then we'll jump. Oh, 17's withdrawn. All right, so calendar item number 15, never mind.
Calendar item number 15, motion presented by Councilors Rotundo and Rizzo, that the mayor use the funding dedicated for the construction of a snack bar, water, and bathrooms at St. Mary's Field.
Counselor Rotundo.
Great, if people just leave when I'm about to ask them questions. All right, I'm just trying to figure out what's going on with the $700,000 that was earmarked, and why isn't this being built?
Hi, I'm Don Charmella. I'm the superintendent of DPW's Water and Sewer. And at this time, during the construction of that project, I was the project manager, so there's nobody better that knows the situation than me.
So why isn't it being built?
Why isn't it being built? So, well, the building, the precast concrete building came in at $750,000.
Okay.
And at the time, you had, CDM put the job out, but the timing just wasn't right. The field was done and out to the street and bid on.
Can I ask you when that was?
I'm sorry?
What year was that, 2000?
2015. So the bid opening.
So I need to stop right there. No offense, I don't care.
Okay.
I don't care about the dynamics, I don't really care about the why. What I care about is, we don't have.
Well, it's not that we don't want to. So,
Hold on here, we don't have is the point.
right.
Why don't
Okay.
we have is the question. Is there
So-
a physical problem that we have?
No, so probably something that we did. I suggested that we design, we engineer, and put out to bid something that hasn't been done in the city probably for about 2 decades. So we did this ourselves, in-house. We suggested, okay, let's design a better building that's lightweight, because the field was already graded in January and February. It was already graded. So we couldn't bring a building that weighed almost totally with the foundation, 1 million pounds. We just couldn't bring it into the site.
Why?
Because we had porous asphalt that was only 2.5 inches, and the field was already fine graded, and we were putting sod down in April.
How do they do it elsewhere then?
I'm sorry?
How do they do it elsewhere? I mean, my uncle owns precast
So,
concrete in
yeah, but
Rehoboth.
then I would have to explain the how, okay? So the bid opening was July 14, 2015 for the field. Then we had a pre-construction meeting August 10, 2015. We had a shovel in the ground a week later, the second week of August. The building wasn't put out until, the RFP package wasn't put out until January 13th, 2016, and then for one reason or another, we had to put it out a second time, February 16th, 2016. But the sod was being put down in April. By that time, we couldn't bring a 350-ton crane to lift a 80,000-pound one-section building. Now, there's 4 sections. Each one weighed 80 tons, each one.
Right.
So collectively...
Not a 500,000 tons at its linear weight. So it's 4 divided weights.
So the field
I
was
get it.
graded, the parking lot was in. We had to bring in a 350-ton crane to lift each section, which was 80 ton. Each section was 80 ton. Collectively, 320 tons of building. 640,000 pounds of building.
So you had an alternate plan, correct?
So we had an alternate plan, a stick framing a
What's going on
building.
with that?
So that's what we did. So me and Nick Rystrom designed a wood frame building.
So where is it?
So we put it out to bid in May of this year, and we got sub-bids, plenty of sub-bids. We got plumbing, we got electrical, we got everybody but a GC. Our timing probably wasn't correct. We put it out in May. We put it again out in June.
What's the value, what's the cost of this?
So we have a budget of like $546,000 to build this building.
I'd rather have Joe Lake over there with those guys down the DPW yard that you run. Let them build it. Give them the money, let them build it.
We could probably
Have
do
them do it
that.
on weekends, you do it
They could
quicker.
probably do it. They can do everything else, so they could
That's what I'm
probably do that.
saying. And put it in-house and stop wasting time.
So what we did is we designed a stick frame building, and because the site became
Sorry for laughing, Joe.
because the site became this building's envelope was in the nucleus of all the parks. Now you can only bring small machinery in to stick frame the building, regardless. We put the first bid package out in May. We got plenty of sub bids. I have a package for everybody. These are the sub bids.
All right. So
So we put it out again in June. We got a GC to bid it.
So you're saying nobody wants to build this thing?
Well, everybody was busy. We took all
No, I'm
the...
asking you, the question is, are you telling me that nobody wanted to
No,
build this thing?
people want to bid it. Matter of fact, locals want to bid it. Everybody had too much work. It was like if you needed to get plumbing work done in your house and you try to call a plumber and you can't get one because everybody's
busy, but you
everybody's
finally get-
clamoring
But
to...
you finally get one if you want one.
Well,
You pay more
so
for it.
what we learned is you had to put the bids out now, like November, December, because people bid on their work now to put a shovel in the ground in the spring.
Right.
That's what they do. We put it out in May. We got no response except for the sub bids. We got no GC. We put it out again in June. We got one GC. He had a price of $1.1 million. So, hold on. So if you were going to build your house, cost per square foot is $150 a square foot. Any house that's 2,500 square feet or
Yep.
less, $150 per square foot. So the building should have cost $202,000. But say the building is 3,500 square feet, and it's a little more high-end. The building costs
Yeah,
between
$300 a square foot.
$250 and $400 a square foot. Then the building should have come in between $337,000 or $539,000. But in fact, this gentleman bid $1.1 million to come in at $815 per square foot.
Yeah, what you building, Taj Mahal?
It's a stick frame building. It's
Yeah,
nothing more than, it's very simple. It's a
I
very
know.
simple building.
That's a
It's
Taj
just
Mahal.
because he was just seeing if it would stick. He was just, let me throw in it, let me, put a number on it that's ridiculous, and let me see if I get it, because he knew nobody else bid it the first time.
Why don't you ask the Vecchio contractors to do it?
So that's the other problem. So we took it upon ourselves to design, engineer, and put out a building that probably hasn't, so all the bids that we do put out, they're all done by architects or engineers. We did it ourselves for the first time in probably 2 decades, probably even longer. And I think it's still
Which
a
I
right.
actually agree with, by the way.
Well, you had suggested, why can't
Yeah.
we do it in-house a
That's
couple of
right.
meetings back?
Yep.
And we did it. We had a learning curve with putting it out in May. Now we know that your plans have to be ready, bid ready, October, November. So we're advertising, and the other thing was when we advertised it in May, we advertised for 2 weeks. We didn't know. We just thought that's just normal. But we found out that wasn't long enough.
That's fair.
So we're putting it out this week, and we're going to put it out for 6 weeks. So it's advertised for 6 weeks. So like in May, we advertised for 2 weeks. The general contractor only had 3 weeks to get the bid, get the sub bids, and give them their general bid. It wasn't enough time. CDM's putting out a job now for a pump station. It's going to be out for 4 weeks. We're putting this out for 6 weeks. We learned.
That's fair. Yeah, people make mistakes and you learn in the process. That
So
works for me.
it's not that we want a good building. We want it to come in on budget, and we just we want it. Budget and a comfortable building is most important.
Yep.
So
No, but
we're,
that's totally fair, and I appreciate
Right.
that. I will tell you, when I brought up building the building there, Joe over there shrugged a little bit like he was kind of avoiding the whole thing, but
if I ask these guys to do it, they can do it.
Counselor? I've been very lenient with the time on this. If we want to discuss more, we can go to committee, but I know there are many other counselors that want to speak on this, so we're going to move on. Counselor Rizzo.
Thank you very much, Madam President. So Donnie, as you're well aware, I was intimately involved with this project back in 2015. In fact, I remember, the work was well in progress by the time I left office in January, because our goal was to have the fields open by that following spring.
Correct.
I was still confused as to why the building, regardless of the weight, I'm having a hard time processing the fact that the building weighed a certain amount of pounds. I mean, it was on the ground. That is beyond what I can understand. But the word that was coming out of City Hall and the word that was being told to people down at St. Mary's at that time was how outrageous it was that $750,000 for a concrete block building was being spent, and it was crazy that we would even entertain something like that. To which I say, everything goes out to bid anyway. So if it's worth $750,000, the bid's going to come in at $750,000. If it's going to come in at $1.1 million, it comes in at $1.1 million. If it comes in at $500,000, it comes in at $500,000. It's irrelevant. And now to go from a building that might last for 50 years to a stick-built or whatever we're going to be going to, there's not going to be that same lifespan as there would have been with the original planned building that we had all envisioned, including CDM Smith. The problem that I have, the real problem that I have, and it's a real, I can't get my head around it, this started in 2015. At best, we're going to start building the snack bar and the restrooms in 2019, at best. It isn't going to start being built before January. I think we can both agree to that. So, at best, 4 years to build a snack bar and restrooms. And in the meantime, the children, their parents, the grandparents, the coaches, the other spectators that are there, have to go in these porta potties, which we all know what porta potties are like to have to use, and which is why a lot of the parents down at St. Mary's get in their cars and are forced to drive home to go use their own private bathrooms, which is a disgrace as far as I'm concerned. Look, I totally respect the work you do. This is not, I'm not laying this on you, Don.
I understand.
I'm just saying, I think this is going on and on and on, and we have lost 4 years of utility. You can't put a price tag on that. I don't know, I would venture to say if you talk to the players, the poor kids down there, and the coaches, and the parents, the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles, the brothers and sisters, if you talk to them and said, do you think the last 4 years would have been worth if you amortize it out, the $250,000 extra dollars, we might save, I don't think they would really care. I truthfully believe that in a $200 million budget. I really don't believe that they would care. And we're borrowing now at 1% anyway. So it's like free money. Not free money, but in other words, we're not getting socked on interest. I mean, it's ludicrous to me. And I'm glad that Councilor Rotundo had brought this up to me, because I've kind of, to be honest with you, I throw my hands in the air with it. I don't even know what to say anymore. When I go down the field and, there's, whether it be to watch a game or like whatever it is, I can't answer the questions anymore down there. It's been 4 years without bathrooms. I just can't, for the life of me, understand it. And, think of the money that's been lost on the concessions. Think of the time and effort that people have had to take, like I say, to go home and use their own private bathrooms. It's just, it's frustrating from my perspective, because we're not talking about building some big project here. It's a snack bar and bathrooms. I mean, we're overcomplicating this whole thing. We're talking about just putting a snack bar and bathrooms down at a field that was originally intended, and you remember because you were part of these discussions, were supposed to be beautiful Little League fields for these kids. And that's one of the things that, one field had to be replaced because of the New Hill School, but the other two fields, we wanted in our control anyway, because at that time, if you recall, the Archdiocese had control over those fields, and we were already, back then, I was already in negotiations with the Holy Name Society to try to purchase those fields, the city, so that in the event, God forbid, and I pray to God it doesn't happen, but if St. Mary's is ever, the Archdiocese puts it up for sale like they did with so many other parishes across the city and across the Commonwealth, that we would be protected, or our kids would be protected, so that the Little League fields wouldn't go to some developer, and God knows what's going on today, probably put another few 400, 500, 600 apartments down there. We would know that for certain these kids would have their Little League fields. So, I just hope that between now and this coming summer, it seems like there's some progress being made here, but hopefully we'll be able to deliver some good news to those parents down there and those kids that, yeah, you know what? We built you some really beautiful fields down here. We might have some issues with, drainage and things like that we need to get our head around. We'll try to solve that. I'm sure, you've got a great background in that and working with our city engineer and our outside engineers. We'll get that under control, hopefully. But this should not be the problem that we have been making it for the last 4 years. It's just, like I say, it's beyond my imagination, Madam President. Now, I'll stop at that. And Don, like I say, I think you're a tremendous asset to the city. So this is not a reflection on you whatsoever, okay? It's just, it's, from the standpoint of somebody who sat in that office for 4 years and how to, move things along, this is one of those things that has not moved at the pace that I couldn't possibly imagine have seen and allowed that to happen the way that it has. So that's all I have to say, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. I know there are many other councilors that wish to speak. I've been very lenient with time as the makers of the motion, so I ask that my other councilors keep their comments to a minimum, and if anything, we can always send it to committee for further discussion. So I'm going to open up to Councilor Zambudo, followed by Councilor Keefe.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll be very brief. Dawn, in the industry or in construction in general, when there's an office estimate like this, the norm is 5% above or 5% below. If our bids aren't coming in that way, we've got a problem. So I can't imagine those astronomical numbers coming in from anybody, if I'd even consider them ever again. If somebody comes in, with a ridiculous number like that, it's out of the question. Because I'm sure you put a lot of time and effort into forming this office estimate, and to be embarrassed like that is not something I look kindly on.
Well, it's just somebody fishing for,
Yeah, somebody trying to make a score. I understand, but the reason those guidelines are usually set up is so that we don't have that kind of trash in the business. So I would rule that person
Oh, yeah.
out under any circumstance. Thank you. That's all I have. I'm sure this is going to get going real quickly, and looks like you're almost there. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor. I'm going to open up to the ward Councilor Charlie Patch, and I'm going to go over to the side.
Thank you, Madam President. Donnie, as you know, I've been trying to push for this for the last 4 years. The first one bid, it took a while to go out, and it came back, 700 and something thousand.
So the first, it was only an RFP, so it was a request for proposal. And that went out February 16th, 2016. That was a request for proposal for $750,000.
That's the original
That was the
design?
original, yeah.
Well, the original
So
design
request for
was,
proposal on February 16, 2016 meant that whether it be United Concrete had to come back with shop drawings, okay? So February 16, 2016, say it took a month, now you're talking March, right? Just for shop drawings.
right.
This was the site, April 29th, 2016. There was already asphalt and there was already turf down. We were laying turf. So the site became too remote. So when they said, we have to drop a 640,000-pound building here and put in a $250,000 foundation, I said, guys, the site's already pretty much developed.
Right, no, I understand. The first bid that came back was basically for the foundation. They said they had to have a certain it was.
$250,000
It was
yeah.
ridiculous, yes.
$250,000, yeah.
And, but we've had, Councilor Keefe and myself, we've been staying on top of this. We had that meeting in the mayor's office to try to get things
Right.
going.
Yeah.
I don't know, I can't remember what the date was. You were there, the
Yeah. director
director of the parks, and there's board members and of the RYBS. And at that time, I thought that we came to a conclusion that it was going to be a foundation in by this November. And I kept asking, what's going on? What's going on? No answers. And I had the same thing with the president of the Lily down there. I mean,
So
he.
if you want to point a finger at somebody, point it at me. Because
No, I would never do
I'm
that.
the one who suggested that we don't just put out the foundation. It has to go out as a package. Because if you put in a foundation for a house and then hire a general contractor to come in, say, a year later and say, or months later, say, here, you have to put, it just doesn't work.
I understand, Donnie, believe me, I would never point the finger at you. You really impressed me at that meeting, going over those plans. And I really thought we were going to get something done, because nothing was getting done. And very slowly, I should say. And it just wasn't a priority. So I have a granddaughter that plays down there. My son had to take her home to go to Bartlett. The porta potties were terrible. And I kept on being down there for the games. I kept on hearing from all the parents, what's going on? As a ward counselor, what do I tell them? I've been trying to do this for 4 years to get this done, and I've had nobody helping me, except Councilor Keefe.
It wasn't anybody's intention to inconvenience people. It wasn't anybody's intention to make people upset. It was just to try to do a building on budget, and try to make it on time, which didn't happen. It just didn't happen. I mean, what do you want to, I mean,
Well,
what
I
do you want
mean,
to put
no,
the
I
finger?
mean, the plans were there in January of,
Well, we put it out in May, and we only got sub bids. We got no GC.
and I'll just end on, as far as I'm concerned, the contractor was terrible, first of all, and there's other mistakes down there that they made. But, to think of, this should have, I mean, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a contractor, but I just can't understand that they do all this work, and now you say that they couldn't get the building in there. I mean, that's not excusable. You can't.
Well, because the plans for the field and the building didn't run concurrent. The plans for the
Well,
field were done.
that's the plan.
And then the building was
excuse me,
done.
That was the designer.
That's correct.
It's CDM Smith.
That is
That
correct.
was their fault, and they get big money to do the design. And now you keep using them. I don't understand, but I'll end on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Keefe.
Thank you, Madam President. Much like Councilor Patch, and I know this for some of the fellow councilors, I've expressed my frustration. I know, John, you've been on the other end, and you've always been very professional, and I know that sometimes I've probably been a little bit upset.
Thank you.
But I guess, as I am a board member at St. Mary's, our YBS, I've been a coach for 11 years, and I get the same questions like Charlie, and I try and give everyone answers. I just want to be able to give an answer. I'm not looking to the past. I know that there was, in hindsight, I think it would have probably been best to just do it the way that it was originally planned. But if we all knew that then, we would have, right? And getting $1.1 million bids now, which are outrageous, and obviously 4 years later having nothing is obviously not happy, isn't right. But I just want to look at how we're going to move forward, right? So if you're telling us today that the bids are going to go out for 6 weeks, which sounds right, and it's the time to get the bids out, which sounds right because it's the winter time or getting close to the winter time, people aren't looking for work, looking to plan work ahead. If you can just give us like real timelines, and I'm not saying you're going to have all the answers tonight, but provide the council with real solid timelines so that we can stick with.
So this Thursday, the advertising's going out again. It runs for 2 weeks. It actually runs once. And then it's on the central register for 2 weeks.
Yep.
Online. So so after 2 weeks it expires. We're gonna renew it after 2 weeks, and we're gonna renew it again another 2 weeks for 6 weeks.
Yep.
To bring it into that time where everybody's really looking for their work.
Right.
So like the SOAR job that's going out, which is going out this week, it's going out for 4 weeks. We made the mistake in May, this building, we advertised it for 2 weeks, so sub-bids can, and then we made the same mistake in June. We didn't realize that we could do 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks.
So what I'm saying is, and again, I don't expect you to have all the answers tonight. If you could just give the entire council, maybe it's an email in 6 weeks from now, and say, here's
Absolutely, yeah, I
here's
can
the
do that.
progress, here's
Yeah.
what's happening,
Yep.
and here's what we're committing to.
Yes.
Because we already know, it's not happening
So-
at best till next year.
I'll keep everybody, I can send everybody an email
Right.
as the weeks go on. This week, when it goes out, 2 weeks after it expires and renews, goes out another 2 weeks, I'll keep everybody,
Well, we'd
I'll
appreciate
email
that.
all yous.
We just want to be able to give our constituents answers and the people down there, and,
Yeah.
and
And by that time, after 6 weeks is up, we'll have sub-bids and hopefully a GC that will bid on it, that's looking for work, and put a sensible dollar figure on it.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Keefe. Counselor Morbido.
Thank you. Donnie, thanks for being up front and never dodging our calls, at least mine. But, I was part of the meeting with Counselor Patch and Counselor Keefe and the board members down at St. Mary's. And a lot of us voiced our frustration, and you were there. And you told us all the obstacles then. Sure, we got a timeline. We're under the impression that we would be moving this season. And, I gave some constituents false hope by saying, hey, it's probably going to get started by this season. And I kind of look like the bad guy, so I can really, really relate with my fellow counselors up here. And do you think next season would be feasible? Or is that?
I don't think we have a choice. We have to move forward with it. I'm not looking to inconvenience people, families, children at all. I know it's difficult. I want to see the building built. I designed it. I want to see it done. From cradle to grave. So I was anxious to get it going, and I was hopeful that I would have plenty of GCs bidding on it because it's such a simple building to build. But
I think just in today's society, anxiety is at an all-time high. You have parents working 2 jobs. You have them rushing to the baseball field just to get their kids home from school, rushing home from work, getting them dressed for the game, going there. They don't even have time to run to the bathrooms or get something to eat, and they're forced to wait in line at a porta potty. So I can understand, everyone's frustration, and I know it's, right now, you're doing the best you can, but if you can do as you said and keep the dialogue going with us, I'd greatly appreciate it.
nobody was more disappointed than me in May when we put it out for 2 weeks and I got nothing but electricians bidding on the work, plumbers bidding on the work. I was the GC. I was nobody more disappointed than me. I thought it would be put to bed and we would all put it behind us by then. And all I have to do was look in on the project, and it wasn't to be. There was nobody more disappointed than me.
Yeah. But at the same time, you've got to keep in mind, construction, building is at an all-time high, too. So, you know, you can't put all the pressure on yourself, too. So you're doing the best as you can.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Morbido. Any other councilors? If I may, very briefly, thank you for coming tonight and for shedding some light on that. I
Certainly.
look forward to seeing emails, like you mentioned,
Yep.
as the progress goes. I know, at least in my perspective, the biggest thing being on the council is we're the ones that are held accountable, as we should be, because we're the ones that represent the people. So as my colleagues kind of alluded to, when people want to know where something is, we can't even give them an answer. It's a tough situation that everyone's in. It's a tough situation that you're in, a tough situation that as a council we're in. So we appreciate your support, and I think the biggest thing is, even if things aren't happening, we just need to be able to provide answers as to why they're not happening, because people understand that things don't always go according to plan and things don't always happen the way we want them to, but they at least expect an answer from us and some sort of accountability. So I appreciate your help with that.
No problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
On the motion, all in favor? All opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 16, motion presented by Councilors Rizzo and McKenna, that the Traffic Commission consider 2-hour parking between the hours of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. on Vinyl Street between Wilson Street and up to including number 83 Vinyl Street.
Councilor Rizzo.
Thank you, Madam President. Obviously, in Councilor McKenna's absence, I'll speak on her behalf because she is supportive of the motion. There's already 2-hour parking on the right-hand side of Vinyl Street from Broadway going down to, that's Hall Street. But in any case, I've asked for that in the past to be enforced, and I'm hoping that that is the case. If you go a little further down, unfortunately, there's been a lot of activity going on down there. I have worked with the Revere Police Department to try and address some of those issues that are happening down there. And I think one thing that could be helpful would be to put 2-hour parking there. So if this could go to the Traffic Commission to allow for 2-hour parking, it would help those residents down there so that at least police, when they went down there, would have the ability to ticket if these vehicles are there, and which they have been. And it's led to altercations, it's led to 911 calls. I mean, it's become a real problem in a neighborhood that historically has been one of the finer neighborhoods in the city. So I really hope that the Traffic Commission will take this up and allow for that 2-hour parking down there.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you.
I know that parking and those issues are really important to Councilor McKenna, so I'm sure that she wished she was here to speak on it, so thank you for taking that up on her behalf. I'm going to send this to the Traffic Commission if there are no other councilors that wish to speak. Traffic Commission.
Calendar item number 17 has been withdrawn. Calendar item number 18, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo, that members of the DAG Peer Review Group and HYM present any and all traffic mitigation. Additionally, any project changes that have taken place from HYM's original presentation.
Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you. We have a multi-million-dollar project being built down at Suffolk Downs, and I've had more people ask me questions about every facet of it over the past 6 months, which I can answer some of the questions, but it's just a multitude of questions that need to be answered. And more importantly, with such a very grand project taking place, I think having this type of transparency is the utmost important so that the people of this community know exactly what's going on, what is exactly getting planned, what exactly is going to happen, what exactly is going to happen with the traffic. Considering the mitigation that was proposed by the casino several years back, at that time it was estimated around $50 million in order to fix it back in those days dollars. So currently, when you adjust for inflation, it's probably closer to $75 million. That said, I'd like to know exactly what's going to take place. I'd like to know what the project design is. I'd like to know what type of process they're going to do to McClellan Highway, if at all, what they're going to do on 145, where the egresses are going to come from the buildings, and I know they're in a very preliminary stage, but at least to present that to the public would be nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. I'm going to have Counselor Novoselsky, then Counselor Rizzo.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, with regard to this, I know the DAG has been meeting, since May, twice a month, except for, I believe, August. And I know Councilor Rotundo was there at 1 or 2, and Councilor Rizzo was there at 1 or 2. And, I've been to every single one during this period of time. And they've been very upfront, shown everything. There's been questions, almost 50 people that show up at those meetings from all walks of life, from the very people that live on the streets that don't even normally get involved with stuff like this. But they've been very upfront. Every meeting has been on cable TV, on Revere TV, and anybody can go on and see it. And I'll just give a plug for the meeting Wednesday night, where HYM will be presenting their whole package to anybody and the whole public to come out and see what is going on, to answer any questions that may be asked. It's at the Rumney Marsh Academy School, 6 o'clock until 8 o'clock, and it's open to the public, even to city officials that may want to go, that haven't seen what's going on. And they will be coming into us for special permits in their process. It's part of the process. They have to come before us. There's no need for them to come to us separately when they are already being upfront with everybody. Let them come, if people go to this meeting Wednesday night, and then they'll come into us sometime in end of November into December. So, I think right now this is a waste of time, and it doesn't say when council wants them to come before us. So I think this is a waste of time.
So before I have some more questions, I just want to give everyone a brief update from my position. I've actually requested that HYM come before the council next week. So we're going to be having a committee of the whole meeting at 5 o'clock so we can discuss the progress and where they're at, so we can make this a part of that meeting. So we have a meeting, a regular city council meeting at 6 o'clock next week. However, there'll be a committee of the whole meeting at 5. That'll just be about this project. It's the biggest development the city's ever seen. So I think it's important that we all stay in the loop if people can't make that meeting. So they'll be here along with the Economic Development Director to discuss and update the City Council on everything that's happening. So I think we should definitely bring up the traffic during that meeting. And that'll again be from 5 to 5:45 next week. Councilor Rizzo.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the insight on the meeting next week. So I'll keep my remarks extremely brief. But I think this was, I think this is an excellent motion, notwithstanding the fact that we're going to be meeting with them next week. I have concerns, and I have read through the mitigation, and they're talking $50 million in roadway improvements. Councilor Rotundo actually brings up a very valid point. Back in 2013, which is now 6 years ago. So we just got through talking to Donnie Charmella about how construction costs have increased. They were proposing at that time in 2013 putting $50 million of roadway improvements in. Now, the numbers that I'm seeing on the mitigation package that was sent to me by Bob O'Brien looks like $50 million of road improvements. So what's that in 2013 dollars? I'm a little bit concerned about that. I'm also very concerned, and I promise I'll just leave it at this. The overall scope of the project, I would like some assurances similar to a host community agreement. I want, we saw what happened on Overlook Ridge. We've seen what's happened with these apartment buildings when now they want to charge people for parking, and, people don't want to pay it, so what do? They park out in the street, and they take away from, other people who may want it. We need documentation, so we have so they can be held accountable, and the city has some teeth We have no teeth in any project that we go forward with in this city. That's truly how I feel. We need something in writing. They're talking about putting 3,000 apartments in Revere, another 7,500 apartments in East Boston. They won't even put any roads leading onto city streets in East Boston. We're going to be bearing the brunt of this, and that's only talking about the residential apartments. We know that they're talking about office building, they're talking about retail. I mean, we need to protect ourselves, and I'm going to stand by that. And I've said that publicly with HYM, and I've said it privately to them in meetings. So thank you for setting up the meeting, Madam President, for next week. I look forward to that meeting at 5 o'clock. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Rotundo.
The one question that needs to be asked, and actually looking at their mitigation packet with the city of Boston, is what are we going to be getting in the sense of mitigation? I looked at their project at Bullfinch Place, I looked at their project in Cambridge and other places, and they were very generous. I hope they're just as generous with us as they are with the city of Boston, and more importantly so, even though the majority of the construction is going to happen in East Boston, the majority of the issues we're going to absorb, because there are going to be no outlets into the streets of East Boston. It's only going to be on McCullen Highway 145 and over on Bennington Street, if they take Washburn. So, something to think about.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other councilors? This will be going to the committee of the whole meeting for next week.
Calendar item number 19, motion presented by Councilor Patch, that the mayor request the Traffic Commission to install a guardrail to protect the home at 295 Sargent Street at the corner of Sargent Street and Gordon Road.
Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Madam President. This complaint came to me from Revere 311. I went down and observed the owner of 295 has expressed his concern of his safety. He's had just recently purchased a house there, and he's had several car accidents, and he's now requesting a guardrail. They tried to put if you go, I got pictures of it here. They got boulders, big rocks all over, around the corner, and they're all broken up. He has parts of, I got pictures of parts of cars that are left in his front lawn. I know haven't had very good luck trying to get guardrails, but I hope the Traffic Commission will grant this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other councilors?
Madam President, just an addendum to that for Councilor Patch. I just want to make sure that the mayor understands what's going on here. And I think you ought to direct it to the mayor and the Traffic Commission, because the mayor has to provide the money for this to happen. So I just want to make sure you're covered.
I have no problem with that.
Thank you, Councilor. So we'll send this to the mayor and the Traffic Commission. Late motions?
Calendar item number 20, motion presented by Councilor Powers, that the mayor direct the superintendent of public works and the city engineer to look into the feasibility of installing a temporary system of structures, perhaps Jersey barriers, to prevent stormwater from topping over into the Mills Avenue neighborhood. A request to the governor for assistance into this matter from Massport and/or the DPW might be in order.
Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Madam President. As you all know, last year, the stormy weather we had, 1A, the boulevard, were completely topped over with water. Mills Avenue was inundated with water. The water in some places was probably 8 or 9 inches high, just rolling into the neighborhoods. And I had put a motion in that we contact the Army Corps of Engineers, DEP, and whatever other organizations were necessary to come up with a plan to, once and for all, install some type of a seawall down there on Mills Avenue to protect the residents. I think in the interim now, what I'm asking is that some type of a system, perhaps some Jersey barriers, be put along Mills Avenue to protect the residents down there, protect the streets and the neighborhoods. There are very few basements in that area. Most of them are just crawl spaces down there. And that water, if it gets high enough, could seep up into some of the living quarters down there. So that's the reason for this motion, and I hope that the mayor will come up with some type of a solution, even a temporary solution, to protect the residents down there from overtopping of the Mills Avenue area. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other counselors? On the motion, all in favor? All opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 21, motion presented by Councilor Powers, that the mayor, while there are several sections of seawall that appear to be in need of attention, make arrangements to have the section in most disrepair at 143 Rice Ave as soon as possible. Attention to this matter is greatly appreciated on behalf of the residents in this neighborhood.
Counselor Powers.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, this is another area that the stormwater topples over onto Rice Avenue. Several of the sections, I'd say probably at least 8 of them, started to deteriorate. The one section in particular is in the area of 143 Rice Avenue. And I would suggest that if we don't have the capability of doing that in-house, that we hire a contractor, take some of our free cash, frame that section of wall down there, which really isn't that big, but once that breaches through, they're going to have water all over that area down there. It's between, actually it's near the point, closer to the yacht club. So I would suggest that this be put on a fast track so that we don't lose that seawall portion during any heavy storm events in the coming months. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Counselor Powers. Anybody else? On the motion, all in favor? All opposed? So ordered.
Calendar item number 22, motion presented by Councilor Morabito, that the mayor request National Grid to check all streetlights along Squire Road. The lighting is very dim and some lights may not be functioning properly. The lights should also be turned on timely as a matter of public safety.
Counselor Morabito.
Thank you, Madam President. And if the city clerk can please add Mass DOT to that as well. So I'm sure most of my colleagues have seen this while they're driving down Squire Road in the evening. It's very dim. Squire Road basically is dark throughout the whole, if you're traversing through Squire Road, and I think it's a matter of public safety, and we should look at it immediately.
Thank you, Counselor Morabito. Counselor Powers.
Thank you, Madam President. I share Councilor Morabito's frustration with regard to Squire Road, and as a matter of fact, North Shore Road, designated by DOT as 1A. There are probably 7 or 8 streetlights that are out along that stretch, and I've sent a communication to National Grid, Dan Cameron, addressing this situation, but I think the problem is down there that they can't put a bucket truck up there on that high-speed highway without a police detail down there, state police detail. And I would suggest that I'd like to go on this motion also, amend it to include 1A, and I would suggest that they get a police detail down there, get one on Squire Road, and take care of these lights before there's a serious accident or someone is seriously injured up there. Thank you, Madam President.
So Counselor Morabito, there's a friendly amendment to add Counselor Powers in 1A.
Sure, absolutely. As long as we
Councilor-
get some lighting on those roads, I think it's very important.
It's a bright idea. Counselor Guanasso.
Thank you, Madam President. This is the area I represent, and on many occasions, I had to call National Grid and ask for their service. And if it weren't for the many businesses located, excuse me, Councilman, if it weren't for the many well-lit businesses we have alongside of Squire Road, we would have, it would be completely dark. And on many occasions, I think the National Grid takes advantage of that. Seeing that there's so many well-lit signs adjacent to the property of Squire Road, they very reluctant to go down there. And as far as requiring a detail, they just put the cones around it and they just block off an area like they've been doing in all the streets throughout our community. And it'd be very simple, because they certainly know what they're doing. Thank you, Madam President.
Point of information, Madam President.
State your point, Counselor.
This is the excuse they give you, that they can't do 3 or 4 lights. They have to get a police detail, so I would suggest that they get a police deal and get it done before somebody gets seriously injured or worse. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Counselor Powers. On Counselor Morabito's motion as amended, and also Counselor Zambudo is recused from this discussion. All in favor? All opposed? So ordered. We have one late communication.
Calendar item number 23, communication from Ronald Cavallo, 7 Belcher Avenue, requesting an exception to the gaswork moratorium for 7 Belcher Ave due to an emergency mold problem.
Mr. Cavallo. That's
Someone's left an iPhone
the
here.
newspaper leaves it and they record. Thank you.
Sorry. My name is Ron Cavallo. I'm building a house on. My name is Ron Cavallo. I'm building a house on 7 Belcher, which is on the seawall, and I'm asking for emergency relief so I can get a gas connection. I'm one of a number of people that are really caught. My situation, I think, is a little worse than most, even though it's a brand-new house and it was 2/3 factory built, 1/3 site built. The roof didn't. We had a roof failure, and there's significant water damage in the building, and all the interior has to be removed, and I have to remove all the foam insulation, and I've got to have all the walls treated, and I need heat. One would think I could go to propane as an alternative measure. That's become a real problem. I can't even get a propane rep to come out within the next, I think, month. And I'm really running out of alternatives. And the situation is much worse, as you may know, because, and I've been working with the mayor's office, thank you for your assistance, and the ward councilor. But the situation is even worsened by the governor putting a moratorium on National Grid's hookups. I've met extensively with National Grid, and if I were to get, they are willing to give me emergency status, and if this body will as well, they will make an attempt, but I guess there are no more connections until after the 15th. So with timelines and issues, and then what is going on with, and the reason I can't get propane, by the way, is because so many people that were in the disaster in Andover and North Andover and Lawrence are hooking up to propane, so all those companies are just flat out. If this body were to grant me emergency status, then there's a slim possibility I'd get this resolved before the 15th. But that would mean that the governor would have to release the moratorium. I don't know what the status is on that. It's just a mess out there, and I'm certainly not the only one. And one of the reasons of coming forward is not only to say what's going on with my house, but there are also other people that are in a similar situation. So it's complex, difficult, and I mean, that's the basic history here. The mold is a real problem for me. I am very sensitive to it. I was very upset when I discovered the problem, but the interior does have to be stripped out. So that's where I'm at, and whatever can be done would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you. If I may briefly, I just want to speak on behalf of Councilor McKenna, who wasn't able to be here tonight. She's the ward councilor, and I know she was concerned with this, and I know that she's definitely in support of the unions, as am I, but since it is due to an emergency nature, was concerned about the health and wellness of the people affected by this. So just saying that on her behalf, and at this time I'll open it up to my colleagues. Councilor Keefe.
Thank you, Madam President. You know, I don't want to hurt the little guy or the person, you know, certainly in an emergency situation. But the only thing that I keep thinking of is this strike's been going on, or this lockout's been going on for months. And these thousands of employees, they have nowhere to go. They don't have jobs, or they're not working right now. So, you know, I'm curious if every time that a city or town goes ahead and grants these emergency relief, how much it just doesn't put the pressure back on the gas company to let them back to work. So I'm not necessarily sure. I don't want to say no to you. You know, I really don't, and I'm not sure I will. But at some point, if we don't keep this pressure on the gas company, these guys are going to be out of work until after Thanksgiving. I mean, the fact that they've been out of work this long is ridiculous. It's really, it's disturbing. The fact that there's other projects, I mean, across, this isn't to discount what you got going on, but we have projects in Ward 4 that completely stopped, came to a halt, disrupted the entire neighborhood, and I'm talking blocks of Ward 4, that won't get done until probably next summer, and they're going to disrupt them again. So I guess I just want to state again that I'm extremely disappointed in the lockout and the National Grid for doing this to their employees. And it really stinks that it's going to affect, or it's potentially affecting customers like you. I was going to say, is there any way that you can get propane? Because I know a few businesses have gone into propane or electric. Is there any way you? I know electric's expensive, and it's not the most what everyone wants, because you'd probably have to eventually switch to gas or propane eventually. But is there any way you can do something like that?
I think propane is probably out. Electric is a possibility, but it's going to be a very expensive retrofit for me to do it. And it also means I have to upgrade the electric service, and this is a new house, so we're talking about thousands of dollars, and you would think it'd be simple, it's not. So, yeah, it's a mess. And in terms of the lockout, I have gotten very friendly with the National Grid employees because I talk to them daily, and there is no progress whatsoever in terms of all this, which is sad. So.
Thank you, Councilors. Anyone else on this side? Councilor Morbido.
Thank you. Mr. Cavallo, you know, I sense your urgency, and the whole point of the lockout was to prove a point to National Grid. But our job up here is to serve the people and to serve their needs. And we're in a position where we can do that. And you're coming before us, and I respect that, and it's the only way around the moratorium. So I'm in favor of allowing this.
Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I think I was one of the first ones to present the moratorium back in June, and then another moratorium came in afterwards. And my main reason for the moratorium was for the new lines that National Grid was putting in on the main roads, not for tie-ins for, smaller customers. And, in a case like this, I would definitely be open to, allowing this bypass and this exception to the rule. And I know, knowing what's going on in the city, I know there's two smaller projects that are in the same position. And I have a veterans issue down in Shirley Ave, which is in the same position. So, for now, until they come up to us and maybe request something, I would definitely, say yes to this request. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Madam President. I also would say yes to this to help this gentleman. It shouldn't be a situation where he's spending thousands of dollars out of his pocket to do something that is ultimately going to cost him more money down the road with the price of electricity versus gas. So, National Grid, in my opinion, really has to wake up, put their men back to the work, and get some of these jobs completed. I've got a situation down on the Ponce Street where they were supposed to do 2 gas connections. They walked off. Now when we have to put those connections in, we have to probably have to infrared those connections into the asphalt. Thank you, Madam President.
Councilor Rizzo.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I just have a couple of questions. One is, I'm assuming this is going to be an owner-occupied property. You're not building this for somebody else to live in, right, or sell it? And you said that there was already damage in the house, and that, so in other words, you're living somewhere now, correct?
Yeah.
And you've got damage in the house you're going to have to rip out anyway. So is because, and there's a reason why I'm asking this, because, we want to support, obviously our working families, our the men and women, who have been locked out and are going without paychecks and in some cases benefits, and, that you know, I can understand your situation, but at the same time, there's tons of families out there that are suffering as well.
Agreed.
And the other thing that's factoring in here, and we saw what happened up in the Merrimack Valley, and I'm not saying that that was because of a lockout and because of, I don't know anything about Columbia Gas, but if you are going to rely on people coming in that are filling the spots for the, you know, how safe at the end of the day is your situation going to be?
Right. That's a real fair question. Firstly, my installation is very, very simple. The gas stops at the front door of the house. So it's just a straight extension of about 10 feet and then a right turn right to the gas hub that's waiting for it. One of the things that we need to do, we know, is to monitor it, the whole installation. I've got somebody that would do that. But it is very simple and straightforward. That was one of the reasons the gas company was very willing to, not only because of need, but because of the simplicity of the installation, to put me on their emergency list.
Okay, well, you know, our goal, and I think several councilors have already alluded to it, has not been to hurt our own residents.
Sure.
But, of course, we want to support this whole mess that the management and obviously hierarchy of National Grid has created, and the
Agreed.
pain and suffering they've caused their own employees while they're making billions of dollars. It's,
Agreed.
you know, it's unfair, and you're kind of caught in the crossfire here.
Yes.
So I can appreciate that, and it doesn't sound like a major job, so I'm inclined to you know, make one exception. We have,
you.
since we passed the moratorium, there has been no other urgent requests such as yours.
Right.
And like I say, it would be with a lot of reluctance, but I feel for you and your family, you know, and so, you know, that's all I have right now, Madam President.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Rotundo, then Counselor Zambudo.
Just being curious, you live on School Street or do you live on Orvis Road right now?
Oh, neither. I live in Somerville.
You live in Somerville?
Yes.
And
This house, just to clarify, is going to be my second home. I'm selling my other house to have this as my summer house as well.
Uh-huh.
But I
Why would you
hope
have
to-
your corporation buy it then?
Pardon me?
Why would you have your corporation buy it?
Because that's standard procedure for me. I have a corporation.
Not an LLC, huh?
No, I have a corporation.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't think I can support this. Thank you.
Counselor Zambudo.
Thank you, Madam President. Listen, I certainly supported the gas workers, and I'm disgusted with what National Grid did with this lockout. But when I supported the gas employees, it didn't mean that I wouldn't make an exception for a resident. And this is a situation where the gas is going to solve this problem because you've got a mold problem. You're not going to even solve that with electric heat. You know, he's not going to get propane, because I know people that are building houses in other parts of the state that are trying to get propane, they can't even get it. I'm not going to make a lot of exceptions to the moratorium. I'm hoping that they're going to solve this in the next short period of time, like week or two. But I'm going to support this gentleman. I've never met him, but when I sign on to these things, which I don't, I'm usually reluctant to sign on to any of these things, but I did because I sympathize with the gas workers. I still do. I support them 100%, but I'm not going to hold this gentleman up, so I'm going to support this emergency, whatever we're going to call this. Thank you.
Madam President?
Counselor.
Madam President, I know Councilor Rotundo has left the building, but he brings up an interesting point, Madam President. Corporations buying this, there's a lot of red flags that tell me that this might be a property that's going to be resold. I believe what you're saying, sir, but I think that I have certain reservations because we might be doing harm to fellow workers of the gas company who live and reside in the city of Revere right now. They're not taking home a paycheck.
to take care of their families. So that's really taking care of our own. This might be one exception, and this sounds like the coldest conversation I might ever have to hold. But I weighed some of the facts of evidence that was just talked about. And in the conversation, it was made evident that you live in Somerville, a corporation is buying the property, and that this is going to be a summer home. So if this is in fact is going to be a summer home, you're not going to occupy it for a while. And if you do have mildew in the property, if it's on the plasterboard, that has to be cut out anyway and then rebuilt. So I would be hesitant to say that this is really an emergency.
Well, all I can say is I do need to get the building heated as soon as possible and treated. And it is...
If you don't have any running water, sir, there's no need, you don't have to worry about heating the building. Just cut out the stuff that's been damaged, and that's discarded in this place.
Well, no,
And now you have a,
I do need to dry out all the plywood. I have pictures of the plywood. It's covered with mildew.
okay.
So it's really, one of the issues is the house was, and at the time seemed like a good idea, it's designed to be very energy efficient. So there's open cell foam insulation, and if you open up a wall and pull out a piece and squeeze it, it's like a sponge holding water. It's really bad. So, and in terms of occupancy, I was hoping to occupy it at the end of the year. Clearly, that can't happen, but that was the intention. My furniture's sitting in a storage container out in the yard. This came as a big shock. I discovered the problem a couple of weeks ago, and anyway, it has to be addressed.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Madam President, could I just follow up with one question?
Sure.
Because, Councilor Rotundo did leave, and I wanted to follow up on what Councilor Guanasso just said. Because can you explain the second home again? What do you mean the second home? Are you going to live here full-time or no?
No, I'm selling my house in Winnipesaukee, which is my second summer home, and this is going to be the house to replace that. So I'll be using this weekends and during the summer.
And where's your primary residence?
Somerville.
Okay.
I know, it seems
Well,
like...
I'll be honest with
funny,
you, that's changed my whole outlook, because as I said to you, sir, up front, we want to look out for our working families who live here in the city of Revere, not just in Revere, but certainly the ones that live in Revere. And I feel like we're putting them at risk if we vote on something that is truly what the more I'm listening to this, the more I'm hearing, sir, in all honesty, I'm not looking at this as an emergency situation. You might be in a holding pattern like thousands of other people are out there. So as much as I said to you earlier, sir, that I'd be inclined to vote for it, I'm going to withdraw that, and I'm planning on voting against it, Madam President. Thank you.
Any other counselors?
Roll call, Madam President.
So if there's not a current motion, this is just a late communication, so someone would have to make a motion for us to vote on it.
I'll make a motion to approve.
On Counselor Zambudo's motion, Madam Clerk?
On the motion to provide emergency relief to 7 Belcher Avenue, Councilor Guanasso?
No.
No. Councilor Keefe?
No.
No. Councilor McKenna is absent. Councilor Morabito?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Patch? No. No. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rizzo?
No.
No. Councilor Rotundo is absent. Councilor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Janino?
No.
No. The motion fails.
At this time, there's no further business. The City Council is adjourned until October 29th. There'll be a committee of the whole meeting at 5 o'clock, followed by appointment subcommittee at 5:45, and our regular City Council meeting will be held at 6 p.m. So we'll see you all on October 29th. Thank you.